I'll call the March 14th, 2022 school board meeting to order. It is 7 p.m. We are in conference room C of the Fisher Administration Building at 12121 West North Avenue. Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley? Here. Dr. Jessup Banger?
Here.
Mr. Meyer?
Here.
Ms. Neufeld? Here. Mr. Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Rowland?
Here.
Mr. Doman?
Here.
Will Fleural?
Here.
Nadia Ewell?
We will start with public comment on non-agenda items. Members of the Waukesha School Board value the input of students, parents, staff members, and community members. The board's regularly scheduled meetings provide an opportunity for opinions and concerns to be expressed publicly. The board values all comments and will respectfully consider this input in decision-making. The board requests that individuals limit their comment on each item to 3 minutes. Following any comment, an individual board member may respond on the issue raised. However, it is not the intent of the public comment portion of the agenda for the board to enter into a debate with members of the community. Because non-agenda items are not publicly posted in advance, no action will be taken on public comment regarding non-agenda items this evening. We'll start with anyone in the room, and then we'll go to folks online. So if you're online and you would like to make a public comment on non-agenda items, feel free to raise your hand now. And we'll start with folks in the room. If you'd like to make a comment on a non-agenda item, please come forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Brandon Cronick, 4134 North 93rd Street. On Tuesday, March 8th, around 12 p.m., my son was harassed and attacked by 2 different students at Madison Elementary School. My son has disabilities, some that cause him to say things that he doesn't understand completely or mixes them up under high stress. All these students that were involved in this don't have disabilities to my knowledge, but we're told by the principal that his classmates knew he had disabilities because he has told them all. From what my son has told me, this all began in the classroom where there was a teacher. I have not been informed who this teacher is because it was a substitute, not his normal teacher. My son was asked if he liked God. He replied no. Then the same kid began to ask him, does he like Black Lives Matter? He began to chase him around the classroom and ask him. My son yelled out, Black lives don't matter, because he was put in a high stress situation. All your teacher has done at this point is say stop. At this point, half the class have gotten up and began to head towards my son to hurt him. One kid did hit him in this class during that time. My son was removed from the class, after which point the principal had to talk to the class and explain what happened and why my son gets confused sometimes about what he is saying. After this, my son was sent outside for recess when a second child came from behind him and began to attack him, with one student telling her to stop because it was wrong. He began to hit back and splash mud on her. I have asked to see the video from the playground, but I was told I'm not allowed to by the principal. Mrs. Mitchell. I have a letter from Mrs. Mitchell stating the race of the student is not relevant in this matter. I believe it does. My son is white. One attacker was white. One was black. The other student involved was black. This is the same student sorry about that. Principal Mitchell analyzed it, is that my son's statement, Black lives doesn't matter, was indeed to incite. This is the same student who mixes up words and sentences when under high stress. My son did the same things that others may not, my son did say things that others may not like, but he still has rights, and they were violated. Can anyone tell me where the adults were when this took place? Who is watching my children? And are they truly safe? Also, my son told me that the adults at his school are avoiding him since the incident. I find this to be wrong. My child no longer feels safe in your school, is confused to what's going on and why people are weird towards him. Any of the board members, I do have the letter from the principal and my contact information if you'd like it. Anyone interested? You can come get it now, please.
Go ahead, Mr. Meyer.
Sir, first, I'm only allowed to speak for myself, but I'm quite sure the rest of the board will agree with me. I apologize for what happened to your son.
Sir, I don't blame you. I blame the people who are hiding it and haven't brought it up. I've been to the district and the police were called on me. I must be a serious threat. I don't know. I'm just trying to get, for my son the best.
You don't look so threatened. You look like a parent right now, just so you know.
Yes, sir.
And tonight on our agenda, we have the hiring of Luke Pinion as Chief of Pupil and Family Supports. He comes from the Waukesha School District. And I used to live in Waukesha, and I've contacted people there, and he comes with the highest recommendation from the people I talked with. So that's right now, as a board member, that's what we're doing. And when I was interviewing the Jefferson principal, I asked some very specific, direct questions of the candidates, very tough questions, not tough towards them, but tough situations to try to solve. So at least again, I can't speak for other people. That's outside of our rules, but I'm sure other board members have thoughts as well. But we are actively working on these things.
Sir, it hasn't even been investigated yet.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So unfortunately, this isn't an agenda item, so we can't really have a conversation out without violating it. But I'm sure if you reach out to Dr. Means, he'd be happy.
I've tried that, and he called the police on me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have public comment on non-agenda items? Please come forward.
Good evening, Deb Falk-Palak. First of all, I would like to thank Dr. Means for pursuing an audit of special education. In the short amount of time that you have been in our district, you have seen the need for this. And that is not something that has been experienced by families of students with disabilities in this district for years and years of people coming forward and bringing up issues, waving flags and warning, trying to alert you that there are some issues and problems relating to special education. Strong school districts are proactive and not reactive. There was plenty of opportunity for leaders on the board and the former administration to right the ship. And now we have this audit that's been completed, 76 pages, I believe. I really bristle every time I hear a board member talk about needing to advocate for more funding in our district. I brought forward to you during the time Dr. Jessup Banger was school board president, money to work collaboratively on issues surrounding special education. I brought forward ideas from research from other school districts. The Department of Public Instruction recognized that there were issues and extended a deadline to the Waukesha School District to apply for money. Any one of you could have stood up and said something to help with this, and there was silence. And now we have 3 pages of recommendations in this special education audit. Our district was found in non-compliance with special ed law under, I think it was under you as well, Dr. Jessup Banger. And maybe during Mr. Dolman's term, I'm not really sure at this point. Were any of the suggestions offered during public comment acted upon that could have helped our children? This should be looked at as some kind of incredible opportunity when you have people in the district coming forward, bringing forward ideas, bringing forward money, bringing forward the intent to work collaboratively. And we should not have been faced for so many years with silence. It can be easy to brush off people when you are not part of a minority population. It can be easy to justify silence. And I don't get it. I really do not get it. Dr. Means is right that people should not have to come to meeting after meeting trying to be heard. You have had chances as school board members to do something for our children with disabilities. Honestly, I feel our kids have been harmed by inaction, and we really cannot wait any longer. There's been a failure in the face of incredible opportunity and ideas presented to you.
We are at 3 minutes. If you could just wrap up.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
What really has been done is there's been robbed opportunity and time for our nearly 1,000 students with disabilities and their families. I feel it's irresponsible that no action has been taken. And really, this audit now validates what special education families have been telling you for way too long.
Katie Wilkes, 1236 Woodside Street, Heartland. I am a teacher at Underwood and the president of the Waukesha Education Association. I have mentioned this to some of the board members, but a few weeks ago when we announced the retirements, none of those people were recognized by name. That's not okay. I would really like that to be changed at one of the upcoming meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments from in the room? Seeing none, do we have any online?
Yes, Michael Hughes, you are allowed to talk.
It's Michelle Hughes.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. 2001 North 119th Street. Like to speak to the special ed audit. Like to thank Dr. Means for taking the steps to have this audit completed, and also for sharing it with the special ed families. It's time for special ed students and their parents to have a voice in this community. I'm tired of board members complaining about low reimbursement rates and lack of funding for special education. I'm tired of concerns not being acknowledged or validated. Our kids have so much potential that isn't being unlocked due to lack of leadership. My son is 11 years old. He's been on an IEP, that's an individual education plan, since he was 3 years old. My husband and I had to seek outside resources to help our son learn how to read. This should have been done by the school district. My husband and I have spent countless hours advocating, talking with administrators. I do not, my son's had wonderful teachers. I don't blame the teachers for any of this. I see the teachers being pulled and stretched in different directions. But like Deb said, 1,000 kids have been harmed by lack of leadership, by not acknowledging issues, and not servicing our kids appropriately. That's a lot of lost opportunity and a lot of lost time. So I hope moving forward, school board members will hear some of these recommendations and really make some plans to make some change. Our kids desperately need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julia Alexander, please state your name and address.
My name is Julie Alexander, 7224 West State Street, Unit 1A in Wauwatosa. I am speaking in relation to the special ed audit that was just completed, really, and it's very interesting to see that our people with disabilities, our students, have fallen so far behind, and I really am very troubled by the lack of action that has been taken on this so far. And I really am hopeful that Dr. Means in charge will help put things together so that there will be action. But the school board needs to act as well, because there's been a lot of options for the school board to do it, and I'm hoping that the school board does the right thing, because our students with disabilities really do need this. Thank you.
Thank you.
BJ Emmerich, please state your name and your address.
Thank you very much. My name is BJ Ermans. I live at 2749 North 75th Street, and I am a member of the Wauwatosa Commission for Persons with Disabilities. I am fairly new to learning about the deficiencies in our school district for our younger persons with disabilities, and extremely distressed at how so much of the action comes back to current board members who did not act when the chance was there for them. I am looking for a change in attitude as well as that will be demonstrated in actual actions and real dollars that go into the system to help these students. I only wish there was some way that you could compensate the students who have suffered from this neglect. I do also want to go on record as stating that it was disappointing that the ESSER funds had a section separated out for students with gifted and talented. And that was the only group that was broken out, when, as this audit shows, the group that really needs help are the students with disabilities. I do hope this changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more hands raised.
Move on to recognitions portion of the evening. The school board recognizes staff and students for exemplary achievements. Tonight, we are recognizing the Scholastic Art Gold Key winners from East and West High Schools. And we have a certificate for each of you. So as I call your name, if you are present, please come up to Dr. Joseph Enger and he will hand you a certificate. First up is Neve Donovan. We have Tess Murrah. Lily Nokolik. Antonio Refrio. Evelyn Schumann. Shay Sidner. Melina Vorvong. I should say those are all of our East winners. And from West, we have Rue Jacobson. We have Eve Lazarski. We have Maya Lee. And we have Evelyn Skyberg Greer. Congratulations to all our winners. And we also have one more. The school board is also recognizing West student Evelyn Skyberg Greer for Evelyn's artwork, The Garden, which was selected as a nominee for the National Scholastic American Visions Award. Each year, one American Visions Award medals given to an outstanding artwork from each regional exhibition. Regional judges select 5 superior works from the Gold Key Artworks as nominees for this national award. And Evelyn was chosen as one of this year's nominees from the Wisconsin exhibition. So congratulations again. All right, next we'll move on to superintendent action items, approval of an increase in base pay. Ms. Fraley. And I'm sorry, I should say you are all free to stay if you would like, but we will not hold it against you if you'd like to.
It is recommended that the school board approve an increase in base pay of $1,110,000 or 3.4%, and I so move.
Second.
Hi, I just want to give a quick update. Jennifer Foch, the Director of Human Resources. Just a couple of provisions that were added since we last met a few weeks ago. We will be providing the one-time retention provision for our educators with 16 to 19 years experience. Additionally, any staff member on the teaching staff with 20 or more years of experience will get a one-time $1,000 bonus. And then those staff members of 20 years or more of experience that are making less than $70,000 will get a retention provision as well. So those are some changes from the last time that we met in recognition of the feedback that we received regarding the plan. And at this time, our colleagues from the association would like to make some comments.
Please come forward and use the mic. Just introduce yourselves.
Hello, I'm Kelly Rampelberg.
And I am Sue Dietrich. I teach at East, and I've been teaching there since 1997.
This is only my third year. So we have a nice mix on the team. So we kind of wrote something up because I don't want to just go off on a random tangent. So good evening. Over the past few weeks, I'm sure you've received many emails and phone calls. Don't worry, we have as well. We have spent the last few weeks speaking to educators, allowing teachers to come and ask questions, explaining the process of how we got here. And after these important discussions, teachers of all experience do show support for this plan. For years, teachers have expressed that they support a change from the current model of compensation. It has been subjective and unpredictable for both teachers and administration. It has impacted morale, pay raises, and retention rates amongst staff.
So therefore, since September, as you know, we've worked collaboratively with the district to create a model that we think will have a lasting impact to address our main goal, which is implementing a more objective, predictable, attainable, and professional model of compensation. Collectively, we've spent countless hours meeting and discussing and identifying our values and our goals together. I think it is important to recognize that anytime a district switches from one model to another, there are a lot of questions and a lot of changes, and sometimes people are afraid of change. But we feel that our common interests, the district and teachers, are represented with this new plan. The proposed system is comparable to other districts, and it will be transparent and predictable for all educators, regardless of their years of service. We know that this new system doesn't address all of the concerns that educators in Wauwatosa still have, but we know that this is a step in the right direction and a direction we believe we should follow.
We know that happy teachers create happy classrooms. We know that this model is foundational in attracting and retaining quality educators in Wauwatosa, and we're going to continue to make this community great. The WEA plans to continue working together with the district so we can move forward to grow stronger together. We support this plan, and we're hoping that you will vote yes to support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, Ms. Fetch? Dr. Means? Open up to board questions and comments. Oh, sorry.
Randy
Sorry.
Haskey, fourth grade teacher, Madison Elementary School. My address is 904 South Main Street, Saukville, Wisconsin. Well, we all appreciate all the work that you've done so far to work on this plan, to put a concrete plan in place. And we do agree that we having something on paper that we can see where we will advance is great. I and some of my colleagues do not believe that this is the plan that should be approved tonight. It does very little to level the compensation for current teachers as compared to surrounding districts. The current teachers will continue to be paid at a level far below other Milwaukee County districts and possibly even below incoming teachers. The teachers who have passed levels 3 and 7, as noted in the plan, will not receive increased compensation. That seems to be the biggest sticking point for us right now. Anyone past year 8 will miss those 2 levels. And this is the biggest inequity in the plan. It affects a lot of us. Meanwhile, based on the human resources agenda for tonight, we are also noticing that the gap between administrators and frontline teachers is growing more and more each year. The administration has expressed that the most important part of this new plan is that we cannot offer competitive salaries. This is not the case. The district has been able to do this. Just one example is a 5th grade teacher who was hired at Jefferson in November at a salary of $75,000. That is far above other elementary teachers. And this does show that the district can negotiate and recruit new teachers coming in. The current consensus among the administration, some of the members of the board that I've spoken with, and the WEA is that if this plan does not pass tonight, there will be nothing, and I disagree with that. The board could approve a standard raise for us as you have in the past. We could then return to the table with more voices and the ability to look for funding sources. I understand that funding is difficult, but at the last meeting, we approved ESSER funds for positions that are newly created, and we have no funding for those after 2 years. We're going to have to advocate to the legislature, maybe increase enrollment to fund those positions. Also, I would say that the message from the district and the WEA is that the mistakes of the past cannot be fixed, and there is a lot of blame placed on Dr. Ertl. While I don't agree with the leadership of Dr. Ertl, his tenure is over, and it shouldn't be used tonight as a scapegoat for the decisions being made. The board also approved many of the actions of Dr. Ertl, including the pay raises that we have experienced. The responsibility is now with our current leadership, including the board. Not all mistakes of the past can be fixed. However, I think that we have an opportunity, and you as members of the board have an obligation tonight to do your very best to fix these mistakes. And the opportunity comes tonight. If we are going to be champion for students, we begin by being champions for teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. To board questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't plan to speak, but I will just to address what's been said. My name is Ted Craig, and I'm what's called a regional director with WEAC Region 7. So I work with a lot of districts in the metro area, a lot of the teacher local associations. And a lot of what was just said is unfortunately true. I don't know if you're aware of it, but Wauwatosa is the second lowest average pay for teachers in the metro area out of 37 districts. And that's the legacy of the system that you had. And there's obviously a lot of past wrong that needs to be made up as a result. I would also note that if you actually look at the finances, one of the questions is, can we afford it? The last year that there's publicly available data for, the district had a $1.5 million surplus. That's money it took in over what it spent. And over the last 10 years since Act 10, the district has had an average surplus of over $1 million per year. Cumulatively, the district has taken in about $10.5 million more dollars than it's spent over the last 10 years. And even just a fraction of that money could have made you competitive as far as keeping staff, because you have very high turnover in a district that really ought to be a magnet that has some of the best people. There are people that feel that you could do more than in the establishing the system. You won't be surprised to hear that the WEA and I would love to see you do more. That's our job, is to argue for you to do more. And we think you do need to correct past wrongs. But we do see this as a clear and obvious step forward. We looked at the salaries of a number of people who were on our salary team and in the WEA leadership among the teachers. And we just projected what their salaries would have been had for the past 9 years we had the system that's on the table here for you to vote on compared to what's been in place. And people would have been making between $5,500 more per year and $11,500 more per year had they had this prior system. And frankly, it would have benefited your district tremendously. You would have had lower turnover, you would have had higher quality teachers if you actually had that system in place. Now, if that sounds excessive to you, can we afford $11,500 more for a teacher? We also run projections comparing what it's like to be a teacher in Tosa based on what you've done for raises since Act 10 and compared it with Greenfield and Greendale. We found that even for master educators, teachers are making in the range of $20,000 less than teachers in Greendale in the same time period would be making, and about $11,000 less than teachers in Greenfield would be making in the same time period. So you've got a real competitiveness problem here. There's a reason you have turnover almost always in the double digits. That affects the education. There is no, there's a lot of research on what works and doesn't work in education. And it's not even disputed that for the first 7 years of teaching, teachers get exponentially better. There's a huge growth curve. And then they continue to get better, actually, for many years after that. What you're doing is you're having a lot of people come in and teach here for 3 years. And as soon as they become really proficient, they go to other places. And that's not serving the kids in Wauwatosa. So the short of it is this: yeah, we think that you could do better, and we intend to continue advocating for the district doing better. But we see the salary system as a major step forward that would be highly beneficial to the students in Wauwatosa, and hope that you pass it this evening.
Thank you. All right, now I will open up to board questions or comments. Go to community, Mr. Meyer.
We do community.
We'll do board question comments first, and then we'll go to community comment. Mr. Meyer.
My worry in this plan, well, there's a lot of worries, of course. Everyone has a lot of worries, but there's a fundamental principle that I've tried to abide by, is that we match one-time revenue with one-time expenditures, and we match recurring revenue with recurring expenditures. So this item is a recurring expenditure, and for a couple of years, it's funded with one-time money. So, and we discussed this at the last meeting on this topic. We need a plan for the recurring revenue to try to deal with this when we when the one-time revenue comes out. So after board discussion, I am prepared to offer an amendment to this that would not change the wording of the motion, but would add that the school board shall approve by December 1st, 2022, a plan for future permanent recurring funding of the increase. Now, I'm not making the motion at this time, Mr. President, but I would like to hear, not to debate the motion before it's the motion, but I'd like to hear what everybody has to say before we start throwing out motions. So my motion wouldn't change the funding plan. The motion would only commit us to working hard with our new finance officer to come up with something tangible about how we're going to continue to pay these increases when the one-time funding expires. Oh, and also, I'm quite moved by the argument that, or the fact that administrator pay has kept up with market and that teacher pay has not. And because we couldn't hire administrators if we weren't willing to pay market wages. So that to me is quite a compelling argument for these increases. Thank you.
Any other board comments, questions? Mr. Rowan.
Thank you. Just to level set with some data, do we have, or can we share with the community, not if we have this tonight, but data that is reflective of our retention rate over the past years? My recollection has not been the sky is falling, double digit, failure to retain. My recollection is that we have tracked about 8%, if I remember that correctly, which was very comparable to every other suburban school district. And that in a recent year, I feel like it was last year, that it was 7. It was actually improving as opposed to getting more concerning. So I just want to level set based on data and not, concern or agenda. What is the retention rate for the school district? If we've got that tonight, that'd be great. If we can get an email later, that's fine. Just think it's important to have a data-driven conversation.
We definitely have the data. I don't have it in front of me at the moment, but I can provide it.
Okay.
We keep track of it.
Thank you. So that's sort of number one. Number two, I think it's important for us to keep pace to be competitive, to ensure that we can ensure that we do have a solid retention rate, that we are keeping our staff here in TOSA. It's important. We can't educate the kids without great teachers. We need to keep them. To me, this is a plan that moves us in a direction that I think is positive. Will it make everybody happy? No, I don't think so. There's probably not a plan that will do that. This is a carefully negotiated plan between a lot of people who had good intentions. And I think that we should honor those good intentions tonight by voting yes on it. I plan to vote yes on it, but happy to hear what other board members think about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan. Any other board members want to speak? Ms. Bufo, I'll make sure.
Yes, thank you. And I would like to say to all of the educators who have contacted me, I really appreciate it. I appreciate the comments this evening. They're very important. I have some history, and over time, the district and the teachers union have been very amicable, even during our most difficult moments during Act 10. So I appreciate, all of the discussion and everybody staying at the table, because that's what we really need. I would like to see more being done, and I think we have that opportunity. I'm also wondering how we will sustain this, increase and future increases, how we will further improve the district. I mean, salary is one point, but there are other considerations too. And again, thank you to the team members that have brought those things to my attention with benefits and being comparative with benefits and not, not getting in a difficult situation as far as that goes. So again, I want to see a little bit more effort on the board's part, a little bit more effort on the administration's part to really get a plan in place for how we're going to sustain these great people that we have. So, and it's not going to be easy. I mean, you can't do everything, but in the same way, you have to do everything. So, improve curriculum, improve salaries, improve buildings. You have to. So, but we need a better way to predict it. So, and to try to attract new teachers, we need a plan and a revenue stream. So I concur with any kind of motion this evening that might get us to that point, actionable, that might get us to that point.
I'll just say I intend to support this as well tonight. I think our teachers are our greatest asset, and it's certainly important that we start to reward them in the way that they should be. I want to thank Ms. Foch and Dr. Means for their work, along with the WEA. Really appreciate you all working together and coming up with a plan that really moves us forward. And I would agree it doesn't get us exactly to where we need to be, but I do think it's a step in the right direction. So I do intend to support this evening. Did you want to make your
Yes. So my intent is that we approve this as proposed, and also at the same time communicate to the community and to the teachers as well that the board is setting like a stake, putting a stake in the ground to set a deadline for ourselves to come up with a financial plan. On this night, pretty much Dr. Means' whole cabinet is being hired, and they aren't in their chairs yet until some day in the near future. So the exact date may have to change. And we're starting a strategic planning process, and we need to align the financial plan with the strategic planning process. But I think it's important that we speak to the community to say we are rolling up our sleeves to do the good work for Wauwatosa. We have a date. It might move, but for a starter, we're going to start towards a date and see what happens. So with that, I offer this motion. The school board shall approve by December 1st, 2022, a plan for future permanent recurring funding of this increase. And I so move.
Second.
Just giving Ms. Newman a chance to finish. So we have a motion and a second. Mr. Meyer, if you could just maybe help me a little bit more understand, how would this differ from just our normal budgetary process as far as, I think what you're trying to get to is let's make sure we have the money to pay for this plan and let's be transparent about it. Could you just talk a little bit more how that would work in conjunction, I assume, with the budget process?
Typically, best practice, traditionally, the board would not take up a recurring cost without knowing recurring funding. It seems right now we can't wait to increase these salaries. And so somehow I have to reconcile those two needs. And I think a good faith statement that we are working to reconcile these two needs, the need for more salaries and the need for a solid framework to sustain the salaries. That if we say that tonight, we aren't just, we are thinking about this in a proper way, but there's an immediate need for funds so we can start recruiting teachers. And any teacher who applies to the district or who is deciding whether to stay with the district has our word that we are, as a board, working on a mechanism to sustain these funds, that they aren't going to be, fleeting and temporary, that the board will find a way to make these things permanent.
So this is a reoccurring expense. So is this a reoccurring request?
No, we're raising base pay, and we're using one-time money to raise base pay. And, as we saw in the last meeting, year 3, we have to figure out how to fund this in year 3. And 4 and 5 and ongoing into the future. So, and we don't have a plan though, because our chief financial officer is sitting out there and he's not working for us yet. So I want to make a statement to the community that we have our eye on the ball, that we're being responsible, and we're going to come up with a plan. And I believe there's value in saying it explicitly out loud, that we are handling things the right way as circumstances are coming to us.
Thank you. Dr. Means.
We welcome the opportunity to meet your motion. Historically, the Wauwatosa School District has invested $425,000 towards teacher increases annually. There have been years where you have frozen teacher salaries. So the request that you're making of this administrative team, we welcome it, because that's not what happened. There were years where you froze that salary. So that means that average of $425,000 wasn't provided. There wasn't a plan, quote unquote, to make sure that that was invested annually. What this commitment is in front of you this evening is that we would triple the amount of money that we invest in teacher salaries from $425,000 to $1.2 million. But again, we embrace the opportunity to bring a plan so we can show you a line item that has $1.2 million that hopefully we'll never have to go to our teacher force and say we have to freeze salaries. The way we've done has happened before. Ms. Muenfeld talked about wanting to do a lot, but maybe not having a lot of resources, but we have to find a way to do it anyway. This is just step one of many steps. So we heard the teacher association make the statement that we need to continue to talk. There are other employee groups within the organization who are just as valuable as our teachers, and we value everyone. But we have, Ms. Foch and I have heard from our educational assistants, members of our buildings and grounds crew, you name the workforce groups, they're also looking at this action tonight. So with all due respect, it's not about $1.2 million that we'll have to identify. We're gonna have to identify a lot because we're being charged and challenged to do a lot without a lot of revenue stream. But we're up to the task. We're excited about the other action items in front of you this evening. So we have a team to complete the task. But I just wanted to point out, for discussion's sake, teacher increases and teacher compensation is always a recurring cost. And there have been times, especially since Act 10, where that recurring cost was frozen. And so the quote unquote plan wasn't always executed even before. I just thought I would be remiss if I didn't point that out.
Thank you. Any other board questions on Mr. Meyer's amendment? Comments? Thoughts?
I appreciate you embracing the opportunity, Dr. Means. My question to you, without us having already possibly approved the new CFO, is December a reasonable amount of time given when we find out per pupil expenditures, things like that? Because I hear your point, Mr. Meyer, and I support it. I just don't want us to say publicly tonight December, and then you in your comments also said, or we could move it.
Yes.
I don't want to say December and then the public come back and said, you said December, you're not living up to your word. So I support the motion. I just want to make sure that we are putting forth a motion that you feel like we can meet in good faith based on the financial information we will have between now and then.
Well, I think the community should know, the board knows this, that 2023 is a biannual state budget year. So the state legislature will start the process in January of identifying what the increase is. And I'm smiling because the legislature has not provided an increase to school districts to continue to fund schools.
Thank you.
So let's put that in perspective as well. The main revenue stream in which we receive funding at the state level hasn't provided enough funds for the Board of Education to even have a discussion of sustaining increased compensation. But nonetheless, I don't want to make a commitment for a candidate that you have not approved yet. But we will try our very best to meet that deadline of December of 2022.
Thank you.
I'd like to add that I forgot how many years ago it was, but it was perhaps on the order of 10 years ago. There was this legislative cycle. And just like in spring 2023, the legislature did something we didn't expect. Funding was drastically less than we thought. We were facing layoff of three dozen teachers on short notice in May. We instead accepted 270 additional open enrollment students. That would be hard to do again, to take 270 additional open enrollment students in spring of 2023. And I felt like we got caught that spring without knowing what we would do. So I'm more than happy with a friendly amendment to change this to January 1st of 2023 or February 1st of 2023, just so when spring, May of 2023 comes, we have our scenarios planned out for what might happen, because we were caught by surprise back then, and it was not a good place to be in.
Yes, sir. That's a quick comment. I mean, I love this in ceremony, but I wouldn't want our educators to think that this plan is in jeopardy, right? Should we not live up to this deadline? So in ceremony, it feels great and it feels like the right thing to do, but I don't want to send the wrong message. Good.
I'm looking for a way to vote yes on the raises, actually. So that's why I would like this amendments that we've publicly communicated. We have our arms around things. We're working on stuff. No worries. We don't know what will come of it, but we're working on it.
Any other board comment on the amendment offered by Mr. Meyer?
Mr. Meyer? I think I'm out of order, but if you don't mind.
No, go ahead.
I appreciate your flexibility that you mentioned. Is there a way for us to perhaps create language that states that part of the 2023-2024 school budgeting process, there's a process and a line item that demonstrates the sustainability of this program? Because I think all of you've lived through the budgeting process at the state level, and then we have to come up with multiple models on if these rumors of what we're hearing will happen at the state level happens, this is how we will react to it financially. I believe that our new CFO and I and our team can clearly adjust to those scenarios, and we can embed it in the 23-24 budgeting process, which I think ultimately that's what you're requesting.
Well, but may I ask, what's the timeline for the strategic plan? When do you anticipate that being completed?
June 30th, 2022.
Oh, that's pretty. But how do you do a strategic plan without a financial plan? It's kind of a rhetorical question, but I assume that it would take longer and we could make the financial plan align with the completion of the strategic plan, and that would give you more time.
Actually, my experience with a strategic plan is that you set your goals and your vision, and then your priorities are driven by those goals and visions, and that drives your budget.
Yeah.
So it's actually the reverse.
Thank you, Dr. Means. I think I support that idea as well as far as making it part of the budget. And I think that's where I was going with my initial question, Mr. Meyer, I'd like it to be I think it's a great idea, but I'd like to be an ongoing, regular part of the budget.
Friendly amendment that the board shall approve in line with the budgetary process of what?
23-24 school year.
So the board shall approve a plan. No, the board shall approve during the next budgetary process.
Yes.
The board shall approve during the next budgetary process. How's that?
I understand it.
Can you read the full motion?
Yeah,
I'm
how you
typing it
doing
up.
there, Ms. Newman?
Yeah.
So the board shall approve as part of the next budgetary process a plan for future permanent recurring funding of this increase.
Any objections to that friendly amendment? That would be our amendment then that we would vote on. Any other discussion around this item, the amendment specifically? We'll vote on that and then we'll get back to them. Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Newfeld,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Doman.
Yes. Right now we are back to the original motion as amended. Any further comments or questions? Ms. Newfeld.
Thank you. Just a question. The increase for base pay is effective July 1st, 2022 at 3.4%. So as of July 1st, 2023, what would we do? Do we have another opportunity to change? Or is this just an annual? I mean, I understand it to be an annual increase and that we will be negotiating for the next cycle increase, correct? Base pay? Okay. So this is annual. I just want to make that very clear to everyone. So this is an annual vote right now, effective 7/1. Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Do you mean annual, that it's just this year and that we'll vote on another increase next year?
Correct.
I hope our amendment that we approved handles that, right? That there'll be there we go, a plan.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, okay, thanks.
Well, right. So, I mean, I take your addition because I think this is bigger for us. I mean, we are experiencing unusual inflationary times. We know we are at a competitive disadvantage in many ways, and the people we have are the most important part of, helping the children. So I hope that we do this and in the budgetary process or any other that we might decide to pursue.
Any other board comments? Move to public comment in this item. If you would like to share your comment, please come forward. If you're in the room, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. And if you are online, we'll get to you as well if you want to raise your hand now. And we can get to you when we're done with comment in the room. Go ahead.
Again, Katie Wilkes, president of the Waukesha Education Association. Thank you for this conversation, especially sharing your comment. That really means a lot too. I've been involved with the union for a long time, and we have always had a very collaborative working relationship. I did want to put it out there that MPS just agreed to a 4.7 plus step increases for next year. Mr. Meyer, I appreciate your conservative ways of dealing with things in the district, but I also want to bring up that the last year available, which was the 1920 school year, we had a We had $1,481,090 fiscal surplus. Over the past 10 years, it's averaged about a 1.72. So we have an aggregate financial surplus of over $10 million. We can afford this. I appreciate us being conservative. I'm a very conservative spender. I've had to be, being a 20-year employee in this district and not making what colleagues in other districts are making. I appreciate it, but we have to do something. And Sean, I don't know the numbers specifically that you asked for, but it is high. It's embarrassingly high, the amount of people who leave our district. And this isn't the only reason that they leave, but let's make this not a reason why they leave. Thank you.
Any other public comment from in the room?
Yeah,
We'll come back to it.
Hi, my name is Katie Abbott. I live at 4545 Nicholas Court in Brookfield. Although there's been a lot of good work done, it's my opinion that it's simply not enough. $45,000 as a base wage is still significantly beneath the average base pay in surrounding areas. In terms of recruitment, there's, in my opinion, not a ton of pull there. This plan risks losing teachers who have committed 3 to 10 years with the district to gain, slow down, Kitty, to gain brand new teachers instead, or more expensive teachers from surrounding areas. Losing people who've put the work in through a pandemic, who have done the professional development, the equity work, who have the relationships already. That's what this is risking to lose. Sorry, I lost my spot. The teachers who are already existing here should absolutely be honored and given their retention bonuses. The fact that teachers who've been here for 10 years and are simply jumping over those 2 retention bonuses, it's simply not equitable. It's going to cause a divide in the district. That's all.
Any other comments from people in the room?
Good evening. My name is Christy Knudsen, 2128 North 116th Street. I'm a 62-year resident of the district, a consumer of the Wauwatosa public education system, and my daughter was as well. And I question if there was any thought given in your plan or proposal about grandfathering in certain categories of educators who fall through the cracks and who are not going to get that same compensation. I'm always wondering about the betterment or enhancement for the administrators at the cost of, or on the backs of, the people who are in the trenches, the educators, the classroom teachers. I think there's always more consideration given administratively. And I have seen this time and time again. So as a registered voter, I'm particularly interested in all of your votes tonight and will heed that. I have friends, family, former, current, and retired educators in my sphere. So I am interested to bring back to them, if they aren't tuned in tonight, your comments, or suggest that they zoom in and refresh your comments so that they can see for themselves your stance on where you are falling. Whether you are going to try and find some way to make it more equitable for the educators who are going to fall through the cracks and not get the just compensation that they deserve. Thank you.
Any other comments from those in the room? Please come forward.
My name is Dave Fire. Been about 8 years since I've been to one of these meetings. My kids graduated last decade. I am a public employee also. I'm a skilled tradesman. I work for Milwaukee County, and we've been through that wage increase. They did it in kind of waves. Different groups got wage increases incrementally when we did that. It's hard to recruit if you're below the baseline. We're a steam, I'm an HVAC guy. By the way, I see many opportunities, Mr. Means, to save money in this district. I'm an inspector for the county. We could talk about that another time. Here's the problem, guys. In 2018, the voters of Wauwatosa voted for what amounted to, for my house, just a half a block down the street, 119. I think it was a $700 increase in my property tax. That's a huge hit. I like your word about vision and passion. I've got a passion for siding to be changed on my house. I don't like that. It's old siding. It's obsolete. It's hard to get new corner pieces and so on. That's my problem. So I appreciate the idea of increased wages to get people. I know what it's like to be below the union's rate scale standard and working in local government. But we made a decision as taxpayers 4 years ago almost. Now we got to live with that because that's a recurring cost on my budget. So I don't say that I have any answers, but I do think we could talk about some ways to, because I do this from Washington County, I look at ways to save on our operating expenses. I'm going to the zoo tomorrow to look at a building. We're going to talk about improvements and upgrades that have good paybacks. So that's my only response. I'm here to learn and pay attention otherwise. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further public comment in the room, let's go to those folks online.
John Etter, please state your name and address.
Hi, John Etter, 2733 North 73rd Street here in Wauwatosa. And weekdays, you can also find me at the corner of the English hallway at the East High School. Anyway, I'm calling in, Zooming in or whatever, tonight to encourage the board to vote in favor of the new salary schedule. It's not perfect, so as a number of people have said, but it is a vast improvement over what we have had for the entire 15 years that I have worked for the Wauwatosa School District and lived in the community. Just a little context, this is my 25th year in the classroom. I taught in Sheboygan for 10 years before I came here. And it took me over 10 years in this district to make what I was making in my 8th year in my previous district. And it really has only been, I think, only the past 3 years where my Wisconsin retirement calculations have focused on 3 years taught in this district. So the system has been broken for a long time. And yeah, we can complain that this proposal is not everything that we want, but it is so much better than what we've had, and we can continue to build on it. And I'd also like to take a moment to thank Dr. Means for coming to the table and being willing to actually work with teachers on this, which is not something we've had in with the previous administration. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
BJ, please state your name and your address.
Yes, my name is BJ Ermans. My address is 2749 North 75th Street. And in this case, I am speaking as a member of the Wauwatosa Joint Housing Coalition, which may sound a little out of place, but it may have some bearing as we are looking down the road. I know that we strive to focus on the school system, which is absolutely correct. But at some point, we are going to also have to educate ourselves, and I'm talking about all of the citizenry, all of the school district stakeholders, not just the school board, about the things going on in the city, and that we need to have everyone push for affordable housing and zoning changes. And this joint commission is working very hard on doing that, because without more affordable housing, staff and teachers and everyone within the school district is going to have a very hard time to live near where they work. And that is a high value for people. I also remind and thank Dr. Means for letting us know at one of the listening sessions that all stakeholders, that's parents, teachers, administrators, staff, students, and citizens without students will be invited to participate in the strategic planning process. I do believe that as a person without students in the school district, that I can speak plainly and say some of my fellow citizens without students need to learn that this is a critical issue for all of us. So too many citizens believe that they can just let it go because, oh, they don't have kids in the system. Not true. I believe education is the foundation for democracy. And the foundation of that in education are the people in the trenches, the staff, the assistants, and oh my gosh, the wonderful teachers. So I ask people to be broadening their scope a little bit and being aware that we may need to be lobbying the city for things as well as lobbying the state for more funds to fund our schools. Thank you very much.
There are no more hands raised.
All right, we'll go back to the closed public comment. We'll go back to any final board comment before we vote. Mr. Mayor.
Please know that I want to give the teachers this raise, and I will vote yes. And I also want to try to find a way to give more raises. And I want to be able to, it would be great if we could right now. And I want to give raises in the future. And I don't want us to be caught, as we've seen in the past, like Dr. Means has said, where we have a pay freeze year. And I don't want to be caught like I went through on the board where we had like a threat of short notice for dozens of teacher layoffs. I don't want us to be in that spot. So my conservatism is a conservatism about process and planning, that we do our due diligence. We use the great resources we're hiring here tonight to make a solid plan that we know we can pay for. And we know where you referenced this surplus in income. Well, it's going somewhere, and a plan would tell us how to put it in the teachers' paychecks instead of perhaps somewhere else. That's why I want the plan. Thanks.
Mr. Meyer. Seeing no further board. Sorry, Dr. Jessica. Thank you, Mr. Ron.
Thank you, everybody, for the conversation tonight and for the public comment. I'm supportive of this plan. I do think we need to find ways, certainly both in making sure that we've got competitive benefits, that we're retaining teachers, that we're examining our culture, that we're finding ways to utilize the teachers as leaders so that they're engaged in certainly a strategic planning process. But as we move forward, how we are utilizing them as professional educators and helping co-guide our district. And so I thank you. I certainly think that this is a step. Some of the comments, one of the things I'm curious about is this piece about this early career, kind of this 3 to 7 year window. What can be done in that window to ensure that we're retaining those teachers really well, that there's opportunities for continued professional growth. And I think that's something I would like to see us take a look at as we move forward, to make sure that those folks who have gotten their feet wet, have learned and grown in the profession, that we are keeping if they're thriving in the classroom.
All right, final call for any board comments on the side before we vote. Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessica Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Neufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Abstain.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Up next, our second superintendent action items, Ms. Fraley.
It is recommended that the school board approve supplemental pay increases not to exceed $716,245 to create a more competitive wage structure for professional educators, and I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second. Ms. Fauch, Dr. Means, do you have anything? Any board questions or comments on this item? Mr. Mayor.
Yes, this was a little confusing for me. The supplemental increases will be recurring. They're supplemental increases based on certain factors that as teachers hit these factors, they will receive these increases. And I would like these to be planned for as well. So I will offer the same motion as on the previous action item. I move to amend this to add the words, the board shall approve as part of the next budgetary process, a plan for future permanent recurring funding of this increase. And I so move.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the amendment?
Can you repeat it again for Ms.
Yes, it's the same wording as the earlier amendment, exact same wording.
Just relevant to this.
Yes, yes, because they're for all the same reasons.
Understood. Thank you. Ms. Newman, Nicole, did you have something?
I just wanted to clarify to Mr. Meyer's point, this is a number that will actually possibly, hopefully likely change and increase based on the idea of us possibly creating the certificate or whatnot that teachers can work towards. So this is hopefully a number that we would see increase and thus making sure that we're planning not just for this number, but the increase as well.
Yes. Thank you for that.
I feel like this is where we need to be so specific because it's all captured.
Ms. Newman, could you please call the roll on the amendment?
Ms. Fraley,
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger,
Yes.
Mr. Meyer,
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld,
Yes.
Mr. Phillips,
Yes.
Mr. Rowland,
Yes.
Mr. Doman.
Yes. So is there any comment on the recommendation as amended? Board? All right, we go to public comment on this item. If you're in the room and you would like to speak, please come forward, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes. If you are online, please raise your hand. And we'll go to you after folks in the room have had a chance to speak.
The only comment I have on this part, and Dr. Means has been very clear about the Wauwatosa instructional certification. Many of us as educators in the district are very unclear what that is. It was noted that master's degrees will not be accepted as something that falls into this category. And so we're not all in agreement with that. If the Wauwatosa instructional certificate is less credits and a more economical solution, in my mind, we should also honor educators with master's degrees. Now, I agree with you that that does not necessarily determine whether or not you're a better teacher. But if we're going to accept that as something that goes into this category, I think we should also work to accept master's degrees as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from in the room? Please come forward. Seeing none, we'll go to anyone online. We'll come back to you.
No, there. No. Oh, we do have one hand raised. Tracy L., you have the microphone. Please state your name and address.
Tracy Leckler, 2005 North 85th Street, Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. I would just like to back up what was that Julie just said. I completely agree with her in the fact that I had no idea what this Wauwatosa certificate is. Never heard mention of it prior to seeing it on that proposal. And if it means I have to spend more money on credits, why doesn't my master's count? I fall into that category that received the master's just prior to Act 10. So the tens of thousands of dollars I spent meant nothing to my district, to the district of Wauwatosa, which I've been employed with for 27 years. So I strongly encourage the board to recognize a master's degree as equivalent to any of those other certificates that you are giving special recognition to. Why do those say they're a better teacher? Master's degrees should be included. And to back up all those numbers that other people have mentioned in previous comments, the district can afford this. Katie Wilkes gave you those numbers. I don't understand why you're concerned about the coming years when every year you have had surplus to spend. We haven't seen that money. Your educators have not seen that money. Where is it going? I hope our new business manager can make you see those numbers and understand why we need to retain and keep the amazing teachers that we do have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Jo Randall, please state your name and address.
Mary Jo Randall, 727 North 59th Street. I think it is time that we start looking at administrative salaries. I'm looking at on government salaries. I'm going to just give a few. I won't use names, but a principal in the district in 2021 had an annual salary of $114,570. This salary is 97% higher than average and 110% higher than the median salary in the Wauwatosa district. There's a director, 2021 salary, $114,676. That salary is 97% higher than average and 110% higher than the median salary in the Wauwatosa School District. Another principal, 2021, made $111,906,000. Sorry, let me try again. $111,906. That salary is 92% higher than average and 105% higher than median salary in the Wauwatosa School District. I'm going to give you one more. Another principal. Made $115,806. And that salary is 99% higher than average and 112% higher than median salary in Wauwatosa School District. We never ever talk about looking at reviewing administrative salaries. I don't know, there might be a need to also look at administrative positions at the district level. It appears like Dr. Means is recruiting some excellent, I'm not sure what we call them anymore, directors, and that's great. But I think there needs to be a real serious look at what we're paying at that level, and then to have our teachers being underpaid according to the average. It's not acceptable. It's time to take a look at that. Thank you.
Are there any other comments online? Hands raised.
No, there are no more hands raised.
Thank you.
I just have a question.
I'm sorry, we've closed public comment for in the room on this side.
Oh, you closed the public comment?
Yes, we have. Thank you.
Did you close the public question?
This is not a question and answer session. We only take comments and have you advocate for the position you'd like to have.
Thank you.
I guess I'd like to address that last point. If we say it, a principal at $114,000 is 97% above average, and we're saying the average principal is $50-some thousand, which in no way, shape, or form can be correct. So I'm not exactly sure that. I'm looking at Ms. Foch. You would agree? Okay. Thank you for that. That was confusing. I just want to make sure that we're clear on that. Mr. Mark.
Thank you. Speaking to the input on master's degrees. Now, I'm no expert on the value of a master's degree these days. It might be helpful to know that when I moved to Wauwatosa 34 years ago, in the teaching community in the Milwaukee area, it was widely believed that it was nearly impossible to be hired as a teacher in the Wauwatosa school system unless you had a master's degree. So times change, I understand, and maybe how we value certain things changes. And often people refer to the school district then as like the glory days or whatever, you know, when you know, dirt was young and everything. But it makes sense to me, but I don't know that I'm an expert in it. There was a time in Wauwatosa where it made sense to put particular value on master's degrees in the teaching community. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Roll.
Thank you. Is there someone I could share just what the fiscal impact would be if that was a elevated position? Do we have a ballpark number of what the fiscal impact of something like that would be?
I'm sure we could cost it, Mr. Rowan. I think philosophically is the philosophy challenges the real roadblock. We have a one-lane system that you approved in the base wages. So master's degrees mattered in a pre-Act 10 world where you looked at years of service and your educational attainment. Post-Act 10, a lot of school districts have moved in a lot of different ways. So your past system, for example, it recognized master's degrees maybe. It also recognized the portfolio that a teacher would present and the endorsement of the teacher, or excuse me, of the principal of that teacher. So there have been a lot of sliding and different views of what a strong teacher looks like. And the concept of a master's obtaining and holding a master's degree equates to a strong teacher. There's obviously arguments that could say yes, that holds true. There's research that says that's not accurate. And so the Wauwatosa Instructional Certificate is an option for staff members to take 5 credits. So it's less than the typical 36 credits that you would have to pay for a master's degree. You take 5 credits that are crafted and shaped specifically for what Wauwatosa has identified as education and knowledge that will be helpful to move our instructional program forward. Those are 2 very different items. But I think I'm not addressing your original question, which is, can we cost it? Sure, we can cost it, but I think it really goes back to the philosophical beliefs that drove this one column system, moving away from either the matrix of years of experience and educational attainment or the subjective review of a principal and other components.
Ms. Mayfield.
Thank you. To me, professional development is important. And this is also one of the other things I'm hopeful we will be working on to encourage it.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's where I'm at with this topic. It's, you know, it will only benefit us and the children and the employee who wants to undergo additional professional development, who wants to invest in it. It's positive for everyone involved. So I'm not sure why we wouldn't take a look at that in more detail.
Any other comments from the board before we move to a vote on this item? Seeing none, Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Abstain.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Both measures pass. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate all the comments tonight on this topic. Next, we will move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda which board members would like to remove for separate discussion and action? Seeing none, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any comment on this item from the board? Seeing none, we'll move on to public comment from those in the room on this item. Please come forward. Seeing none, is there anyone online that would like to speak to the consent agenda item?
There are no hands raised.
Thank you. Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessica Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Thank you. Next, we will move to human resources action items. Some exciting news for us tonight.
Yes.
Ms. Foch, are you taking over? I'm sorry, Mr. Phillips, you should read the motion first. Sorry.
You got it.
I'm too excited.
Too present. It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022-23 administrative contract of Keith Breitman as Chief Finance and Operations Officer effective July 1st, 2022 for 229 days per year at an annual salary of $172,000, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes, we're excited to have Mr. Breitman join our staff. He was unable to be here tonight due to a meeting he had to previously attend, but he's served in several districts. He's a well-respected veteran school business official, so we will definitely benefit from his expertise and the strategic planning he'll be able to provide financially for our district.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Dr. Means or Ms. Foch, I think it'd be great for the public. We kind of walk through what the process was actually for all of our folks tonight, and kind of the interviews and what that looked like. So I think this was, new for us and a great way to involve the board and the community. So
yep, it was a great way for us to involve different sets of stakeholders in our district. So initial screening resulted in a video interview. And from there, candidates were brought in to move through different committees, interview committees with members of the public, building stakeholders, district leaders, and then move to a final interview, including yourselves, board members, and Dr. Means before final selection. So it was a rigorous process over several nights and days. We managed to do it in about a week so that we could be here tonight to have these folks join our district. So we intend to replicate the process with the hiring of the directors and the principal vacancies that we have as well.
Thank you. I appreciate you highlighting that. I think that's an important piece. I know it was an incredibly busy week. I thank you for all those efforts and for Dr. Means and everyone that participated in it. It's really important that we include members of the public and got stakeholders from all over the district. So I'm really appreciative of the process. Any board comments, questions?
I just mentioned I spent some time with them and I found it to be super professional and newest stuff. Actually took a body of his work home to look at how he conducts business, presents to the board, level of professionalism, creativity, out of the box thinker. And so I was super impressed with him. So I think we did a nice job here. Thank you, Dr. Means.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Any other board comments on this contract? Any community comment from anyone in the room? Please come forward.
My last comment for the evening.
That's fine. If you
That's
just
fine. And I thank you very much for entertaining my thoughts tonight. Well, I do believe that there is a ton of value in a lot of these positions, and I have a lot of respect for a lot of people in the positions that are at our district office. I just want us to be very, very careful that we're not becoming a top-heavy organization. At this point, we have officers, directors, and now we're going to have coordinators. Well, I do believe that there's value in that. I just want us to be careful that we have more boots on the ground.
Thank you. Is there anyone online that would like to speak, Jamie?
There are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessica Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Up next, Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Fraley.
It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022-2023 administrative contract of Dr. Nicole Marble as Chief Academic Officer effective July 1st, 2022 for 229 days per year at an annual salary of $143,000. And I so move.
Second.
So Dr. Marble has been serving the Wauwatosa School District as an administrator over the last 6 years. She just completed her PhD this year, and we are so excited to see her move into that role. She's an innovative educator by training, and the Division of Academic Performance will excel under her leadership. So I'd like to invite Dr. Marble, since she's here tonight, to come to the microphone and just say a few words.
Please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I just want to say thank you to the community, the Board of Education, Dr. Means, and I do not take this role and responsibility lightly. We, as you're all aware, we did conduct an audit around curriculum assessment and instruction earlier this year. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and I'm very excited to work with the team to heed the recommendations that were part of that audit and make teaching and learning amazing here in the district. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Ms. Fraley.
So having had the opportunity to be a part of the finalist interviews for this particular position, it was a rigorous process. And I feel like in many ways, Dr. Marble really showed up in a way to show that she hasn't just been working for the district, but she has lots of big ideas as to what needs to change. And while she has participated in previous administrations, definitely set herself apart from a couple of really incredible candidates as the person who is uniquely positioned both with knowledge of the district, but also not so much knowledge and not having been in the role so long that wasn't able to see the forest for the trees. So I left that process really inspired and excited about what's to come, and appreciate the commitment to recognizing that we have a lot of change that has to happen, and the board, no pressure, I'm sure you felt this in the moment, and the board has a lot of expectations for those changes that need to happen. This particular position, I think, is the one as well that the community is really looking to see big changes. So excited for you to be taking this on and for the board to support you, but also high expectations.
Thank you. Any other board comments on this contract? Any public comment from those in the room? Anyone online that would like to speak, Jamie?
There are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Administrative contract up next is our Chief of Talent, Mr. Rowland.
All right. It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022-23 administrative contract of Sarah Zelazowski as Chief of Talent effective July 1, 2022 for 229 days per year at an annual salary of $158,000, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you.
Yes, Mrs. Zelazowski is a very experienced human resources professional with more than 17 years serving in the role in school districts. And she's adept at increasing teacher retention and diversifying staff. So we know that those are some of our overarching goals in the human resources department, and we're really excited to work under her leadership. So I'd invite her to come up to speak.
Good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to be here with you this evening. I can't imagine a board agenda that is so focused on improving the experiences of employees, teachers especially in a school district. I'm really excited about the commitments that you have made to staff, as well as continuing to forward your efforts to improve the experiences and success of students in the Wauwatosa School District. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I had the chance to meet with Ms. Zelazowski and had an amazing interview, and I really appreciate her taking the time to talk with us. My only disappointment was that we didn't have more time to chat, actually. She is someone who I think is not just going to bring in the technical abilities of HR, and I know she has all the ability to do that, but she really has vision for what she wants this district to be and vision what she wants our staff to be and how she's going to help us get there. So I have no doubt that she's going to be an amazing leader for our district. And I really appreciate her agreeing to come and join us. It's going to be a great step forward. So thank you very much. Any other board comments on this item? Any public comment from those in the room? Jamie, anyone online?
There are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Up next, administrative contract for Chief of Pupil and Family Supports, Dr. Jessup Banger.
It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022-23 administrative contract of Luke Pinion as Chief of Pupil and Family Supports, effective July 1st, 2022 for 229 days per year at an annual salary of $143,000. And I so move.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Pinion is definitely adept at implementing PBIS systems and social and emotional learning frameworks that we have talked about all year being necessary for our district and necessary to improve the experience of our students. So we're really excited to learn from his expertise as well and have him come on board. So I'll have him come up.
A little taller than the rest of the people. Good evening, board members. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm looking forward to joining the school district. Been hearing amazing things. I'll bring with me my passion for supporting student mental health and wellness into this role. And the interview process also just really illustrated how amazing the people are in the system. So I'm excited to come on board.
Thank you. Any more comments?
I would share as being part of the process, incredibly impressed with our final candidates. Mr. Pinion, thoroughly impressed with your thoughtfulness and working with students across the board, and really excited about your leadership of where we're going to take things. Outstanding. I was really impressed again with the process of how inclusive, how many community members were involved, and being involved in the levels as I was as a board member this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer.
Thank you. I'd like to say again, I've lived in Waukesha for a while, and I know some folks out there, and I took the liberty of making a call to someone, and I can't imagine a stronger reference for anyone than what I received for you, sir. This is a step up for him, but he's done the job. And he has a track record. So I feel really good about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Any public comment from those in the room? Jamie, anyone online?
No, there are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Up next, administrative contract for Underwood Elementary School Principal, Ms. Mufeld.
Yes, thank you. It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022-2023 administrative contract of Tahir Abdamala as principal at Underwood Elementary School, effective July 1st, 2022, for 229 days per year and an annual salary of $105,000. And I so move.
Second.
Thank you.
So Mr. Abdamala has been serving at Longfellow as an associate principal for the last 2 years, and he is adept at building relationships with all families, all students, and exploring creative solutions for families and students as well. So I know he's made a tremendous impact in the short time he's been at Longfellow, so we're excited for him to be able to broaden his impact at Underwood Elementary. So Mr. Abdamala.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Means and his administrative team. I just want to say, first of all, thank you for this wonderful opportunity, not only to lead a dynamic school and a dynamic community, but to continue growing in such an amazing community, which has really expanded my horizons. The interview process, as some of my colleagues have alluded to, was amazing, but the best part of it was seeing those children and seeing their faces and understanding the change that you're going to be able to, that we'll all be able to provide for them, creating an environment that's inclusive for all learners, where they can all grow and they all can be successful, and understanding that we're going to continue to learn from and with each other throughout this whole process. So just want to say thank you very much again. I'm very excited for the work that we're about to do together.
Thank you.
Mr. Dolan.
Go ahead.
I could say something about each member. I want to give Sharon some time because she was part of the final process, but I think the community and the board should know that we added a wrinkle for the principal hires. We had students give the final candidates a tour so we could get a sense of how do the candidates engage with students. And after a few days, Ms. Keats, the current principal at Underwood, shared with Ms. Foch and I that one of the students who gave the tour came up to her and said, "Will that gentleman be our school dad or not?" So there are students who are looking forward to you becoming their school dad. And I could say amazing things about all the candidates that you're voting on this evening, but that one kind of touched my heart that the kids are waiting on you, sir. So congratulations on making it this far in the process.
Thank you. That is wonderful to hear. I have the same reflection. When Mr. Ablamala, he just was a wonderful person to talk with. And we did have some very wonderful candidates. He clearly was at the top, not only with the educators, the administration, but as you heard tonight, the children. It was unanimous. The children spoke in favor of Mr. Ablamala. So he was, I think he was very inspiring to me. And I have to say, we had some time at the end where he could ask some questions of me. And he asked this question, what does the board expect of me? And that's a good question. It's a very good question. So I did reply. And I'm wondering if you all reply the same thing, but I did reply, high expectations. And that's exactly just the demeanor he had and how he inspired everyone in the building. And Underwood, like all of our neighborhood school communities, is special, but they are very special because we have two schools, two different types of education in the building with the STEM program and the traditional educational model. And again, he inspired everyone he met.
Thank you. I'll just add that I had the opportunity on the day it was announced at Longfellow to pick up 2 Longfellow students. And I asked them what they thought of Mr. A. And they had nothing but great things to say. But they were definitely sad to see you go. So I know you'll make a good exit here as we end Longfellow, but they were sad to see you go, but they both said Underwood's getting a great principal. So we're really happy that you took this position for us. So thank you for that. Any other board comments? Any comments from the public or those in the room? Jamie, is there anyone online?
No hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jess Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Dolman?
Yes. Up next, Jefferson Elementary School Principal, Mr. Meyer.
It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022 to 23 administrative contract of Stephen Kern as principal at Jefferson Elementary School effective July 1, 2022 for 229 days per year at an annual salary of $118,000, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you.
All right, so Mr. Kern's our final candidate this evening. He's got a demonstrated history of success bringing communities together, and we are really excited to have him relocate actually to Wisconsin. So he comes to us from Illinois. So Mr. Kern, the microphone's yours.
Members of the board, Dr. Means, thank you so much for this opportunity tonight to come and meet you and get to know the community even better. I have to echo the comments that were made throughout tonight's other candidates coming to the podium here. The interview process was so special in that you ensured every stakeholder's voice was a part of the final decision. And I know that as in that final interview with Mr. Meyer and Dr. Means, I echoed to them the fact that this process is ensuring you're picking the right person. And I know that that person's going to have the success to be, the support to be successful. Thank you again for inviting me. But I guess the last thing I want to say is The highlight also was the student tour, and that was my tour guides showing their Jaguar pride as they took me around the school and made sure I learned every single classroom and every single teacher that was in the building that day. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. I'm really, really pleased about this hire, and we know the Jefferson community has had a difficult year and with some very tough problems that they faced. And I thought it my duty in the interview to ask the most difficult, unanswerable question I could think of, and I think I succeeded.
Yes, you did, sir.
And I won't tell you what that was, but Mr. Kern, I gave you questions that had no answers, and you problem solved, and that's what we need. And so when there is no answer, when it's a really tough situation confronting you, you're still in charge and you have to figure something out. And you showed me that you can do that. And also kind of like emotional for me. My children were at Roosevelt School when the Scott Lawrence was there. And you are such a reminder of Scott Lawrence, who's embodied in the mural in one of the rooms there now after he retired. And so I just think we are very blessed to have you in our Jefferson community. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. As a member of the Jefferson community, I'll just welcome you and agree, Mr. Meyer, right? It's been a challenging year at Jefferson, but it is also a great community. There's great families there. There's great students there. We're really looking forward to having you as part of the group. So thank you so much. Any other board comments? Any community comment from those in the room? Anyone online, Jamie?
No, there are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Congratulations, everyone. This was a great night. Again, thank you to Dr. Means and Ms. Foch, and especially to everyone that participated in the hiring process and our community members who volunteered their time to do so. That was absolutely fantastic. And as we heard, a big part of the process.
Mr. Doman, if I may, I just want to thank our human resources team led by Director Foch again and her entire team. We were ambitious with our process. As you heard, our process included interview teams that represented parents, community members, staff members, and the organization of it was masterful. It was seamless, and it was due to Ms. Foch and her team. They deserve all the credit. It was just really well done. The testimony, I think you heard a little bit of it tonight. Candidates who did not receive an invitation to be a finalist or did not move on, they commented on the fact that the process was so succinct, so robust, that they learned something about themselves professionally. I think that just speaks to our team effort, but I want to thank Jenny and her team again. She did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Up next, we will move to special education action item, approval of annual agreement with the District of Elmbrook. Mr. Rowland.
It is recommended that the school board approve the 66.03 contracts for participation in the WCSEC and educational consulting services with the school district of Elmbrook, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you. So that's kind of a tough act to follow, but I'm going to give it my best because these are really important contracts that we do bring to you every single year. So the first contract that Mr. Rowland referenced is the Consortium program that we participate. It's known as Fairview South. It's facilitated and hosted by the Elmbrook School District, but it's a partnership program for students with what we refer to as low incidence disabilities. So students with some high needs, often some medical medical issues that require assistance and a full-time nurse on staff, so they have access to those services. So the contract for the Waukesha County Special Education Consortium is to allow for students to continue to participate as students at Fairview South, and IEPs are held annually for those for the students that do participate there to make a decision about whether or not they'll continue there. And the other contract that we have that's also a consortium contract is for educational consulting, and we collaborate with the Elmbrook School District along with Cedarburg, Muskego, Norway, and Arrowhead to hire a full-time consultant and share that consultant across the districts. It allows us to to have really a good quality person in that role and come in and consult as we need on an as needed basis with us, targeting usually specific students, but also assisting us with professional learning, assisting our program support with some of the program support needs that they have in our district. So those are the contracts I'm bringing forward tonight.
Thank you. Any board questions or comments on these? Seeing none, we'll go to community comment on from anyone in the room. Seeing none, we'll go to those online. Jamie?
No hands raised.
Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Dolman?
Yes. Up next, technology services action items, approval of the contract for internet services. Mr. Phillips.
We have one in between.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Capital.
Approval. No, let's not skip that. Business services action item. Thank you. Approval of the PROS 2022-23 capital improvements plan. Dr. Jessup Banger.
It is recommended that the school board approve the 2022-2023 capital improvements projects plan as presented at the February 28th meeting, and I so move.
Second.
Thank you.
Thanks for not skipping me. Greg Truinsky, Director of Buildings and Grounds. I don't have much to add from the presentation that I did 2 weeks ago, other than we're here hopefully for approval to move forward at least with the planning and process of doing the projects listed that I presented to all of you 2 weeks ago.
The only other thing I would add to that statement as an addendum is that we want to assure the board that we are moving forward with a long-range facilities review of all of our life systems, because I think that was part of your line of questioning at the last board meeting in terms of, so what else is out there? What else do we need to consider? We are hopeful that in the next 10 weeks, we'll have that report back where we will look at each of our life systems ranging from plumbing, electrical, mechanical, roofs, windows, 21st century learning environment. We will have an audit conducted on every single area and then bring that back to you, but also fold that in with all the other audits that we've done with our strategic plan to say, so where are we going? What's our vision as a school system? So rest assured we're moving forward with that work. The second addendum would be, is just as a side note, I think many board members remember this, but I just want to emphasize this again. And it was mentioned earlier this evening, when you went to referendum in 2017, 2018, and you looked at all of the different options, there was an option on the table of going to referendum for about $350 million. That would have addressed a lot of other issues that are the quote unquote other issues hanging out there. So those things did not go away. We are assuming that 4 or 5 years later, the life cycle has actually aged more. And so we do anticipate that we'll have to embed this in our strategic plan and our vision for the future. But for tonight, we're asking you to look at the remaining projects for the 2018 referendum project.
Thank you. Ms. Fraley.
So I am in support of the plan, I would just like to say to your addendum, Dr. Means, it came up earlier several times that the district has been very conservative with the perceived slush fund of money that we have. Since I've been on the board, the way that has oftentimes been portrayed is in relation to capital expenditures. And so I'm hopeful that when we look at the budget next year with our brand new chief financial officer and operations magician, that we can be thinking about how it all fits together. So in terms of long-term capital planning, that money in the fund, teachers, like how does it all fit together? Because I know I'm conservative financially, and it really did make me nervous in years past, the fact that we only approved $125 million, $125 million referendum that, to your comments, sir, is taking money out of people's pockets and whatnot. And at the same time, there is still this very large amount of work that has to be done on our aging schools. And how are we thinking critically about where that money could possibly go? So.
Dr. Jessica, welcome back to this room.
Thank you, Ms. Fraley, for all those comments. Echo some of my thoughts. Two others I would add is we've often had an outdoor spaces plan and an active TOSA plan that are kind of looking at how we are thinking about these things. And I'd be curious kind of where we are with that planning. I understand why we wouldn't have taken that up in the last 2 years, but I think bringing that back, there were some families who reached out about kind of the current state of things at Eisenhower in terms of some of the playgrounds. Don't need an update tonight, but I'd love kind of what's the immediate plan for addressing some of those as we go forward. What support you need from the board. I'm really excited and happy that we are creating the spaces that we are for the communities in and around our schools. And so would love to kind of see that as part of the plan as well. Mr. Meyer often talks about kind of the jewel that is the rec program. And so how are we activating some of these different places? Our PTA on a 1 degree day at Roosevelt did an outdoor ninja course 3 weeks ago. Not the 60-degree Saturday, but the 1 degree snowy Saturday. And I think whatever we can do to utilize these spaces and bring families back out and engaging would be great. So thanks for all your work on this. I'm looking forward to seeing how it all fits together as well.
Mr. Mark.
I would like to recognize and acknowledge retiring board member Rowland, who from day one after the referendum has been saying we need a plan for the rest. So, Mr. Rowland, I hope future boards will honor your request, as you were the one who made the request first. So thank you, sir.
He still has one more meeting.
Yeah.
Ms. Boothville.
Thank you. And so talking about the money and, once these projects are completed, we have discussed, what can we legally spend the additional money on, and if they're, and how that would work. Would we also consider returning that to the taxpayers? That would be another option. And can we look into that option as well?
Any other board comments on this item? Oh, Ms. Rollins, sorry.
Thank you. The only thing I would add, just as context for the referendum, is in joining the board, that the board or the school district was spending, I think, in the neighborhood of like $4, $6, sometimes $8 million on capital expenditures. A lot of those being emergency expenditures where a water main would break and the entire school would be flooded, and all of a sudden we would have to have $1.5 million just sort of like instantly. Now that the referendum has passed, that need for such a cushion for capital has diminished some. So it enables us to have more, I guess, flexibility with operating than in the past. But yeah, there is still a need, and there's still a need for planning. But I just want people to understand the the interplay between a need to take care of capital so we have operational dollars so we can invest in staff and other things.
Thank you. Ms. Mayfield?
Agreed. And the debate will happen during the budgetary process, I believe, on what to do. I agree. And I have always said in my entire tenure as a school board member, we aren't able to spend as much as we need to on our infrastructure and capital improvements. But we did go to referendum, and a very large referendum, outpacing all of the neighboring southeastern Wisconsin school districts, and maybe even in the entire state of Wisconsin. So, if we definitely do have a need, if we do have something we can return to the taxpayers if we are, not able by law to spend it, then our chances of another referendum in the future or being able to raise money for capital expenditures, is greatly increased. I mean, they've made a significant investment in us, and I just would like everything considered.
In there, Mr. Meyer?
Just to highlight an example of where we were before the referendum, we had a heating valve failure in a classroom building, and it melted the color crayons. The room got so hot. So we don't want to be there again, right? So we need to continue to take care of things. Thank you.
Seeing no further board comment, go to community comment from anyone in the room. Please come forward, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
David Iyer, 2369 North 119th Street. Appreciate your sentiments for saving the taxpayer dollars. I thought my $7,000 a year property tax was a lot of money, but we've got some big salaries to pay. Apparently that's where the market is. I don't know that, so I'm here to learn. Your position, and I'd love, is right in my wheelhouse. I'd love to see the plan or the report. These are things that I do every day, put together capital planning and funding for local government. Be very curious to see how our systems are graded out by age, planning wise as things age out, all equipment does. What types of sustainable energy cost saving measures the district has. Rather than make any snap judgments, I'd be really curious if I could see the report that I think we have. Is that correct?
We have a report from 2016, which fired off this referendum, but we'd be looking to build a new report, is what Dr. Means was referring to.
Yeah, yes.
I think the 2016 reports are, I'm sorry. I know we're not supposed to.
That's fine.
Do that. I'm sorry. But I'm equally invested in this work. The 2016 report will be a great baseline document.
Is that available for the public?
That should be available, correct?
Yeah. Yes, I believe it's still on the website.
What we will do is work with our communications director to upload that on our website so it's accessible for people. Is it there already?
I think it's there.
If maybe we just take down your email address and we can figure out a way to get it to you.
Mary.
Give it to Ms. Newman.
We'll catch up with you after that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
Thanks, Mary.
Jamie, is there anyone online?
No, there are no hands raised.
All right. Ms. Newman?
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Dolman?
Yes. Now we will move on to approval of the contract for internet services. Mr. Phillips.
It is recommended that the school board approve 12 months of internet access services via the lowest bidder, Spectrum, at the cost of $45,900, and I so move.
Second.
Any board comment or questions on this item? Seeing none, go ahead.
No.
Seeing none, any community comments from anyone in the room? Jamie, is there anyone online?
No, there are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman?
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Approval of contract for wide area network fiber service, Ms. Mufeld?
Yes, thank you. It is recommended that the school board approve 12 months of fiber WAN services via the lowest bidder Spectrum at a cost of $155,952. And I so move.
Second.
Any board comments or questions on this item? Mr. Rowland?
Can we just spend I think for everybody, just like 60 seconds explaining what this is for?
I'll let Mr. Price
Thank
address
you.
it virtually.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just a renewal of the standard wide area network and internet services contracts that we've had in the past. It's 5 gigabytes or gigabit per second internet access that serves all schools in the district. The wide area network contract is just for the fiber links between buildings to enable that internet access and network access, district-wide network access. The speeds between the schools varies depending on the needs of those schools. The secondary schools, obviously, more than the elementary schools in most cases. And we did have multiple bids, but Spectrum won because there's no build-out costs for them. It's because it's just a renewal. It's really just the services that we're paying for. And I will add that, as we have done in previous years, every year since at least I've been here, we do submit these fees for E-rate reimbursement. And in the past, we've received 50%. I see no reason for that to change this year.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Oh, and one other thing. The cost has not increased since last year. The wide area network links are the same cost, and our internet access is actually about $6,000 cheaper this year.
Cheaper is always good. Any community comment on this item from those in the room? Anyone online, Mr. Price?
There are no hands raised.
Ms. Newman?
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Jessup Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes. Business services report. Monthly financial report.
The board has received the report. I think everything is tracking as expected.
Any board comments on this item or questions?
The only other thing I have, board members, to bring to conclusion the Tulsa East Christmas tree question.
Expenditure on this.
The total revenue on it was $34,100. So Waukesha East Athletic Department purchased the trees from Leff's for $23,500, making a total profit, a net profit of $10,600. So they purchased the trees at $23,500. The total sales was $34,100 for a profit to the Waukesha East Athletic Department of $10,600.
Sell a few more
Wanted to
trees.
just close that loop for many board members.
Sell some more trees. We could remodel these.
Just a few.
Just a third floor possibility.
There's a rumor about what it would have been that $23,000 bill though was
absolutely no
a fun
Well,
thing to
worth the
imagine.
conversation. Ms. Mufeld.
Thank you. I appreciate closing the loop on that. I am wondering, how does the athletic club receive the monies? So is it one lump sum? Is it from different groups, baseball or softball, the different?
Now, I don't know how they distribute the $10,600. I think that would ultimately be I can find out. I don't know how they distribute it. It's a good question. If it's distributed equally, I think it's split. So I understand.
Yeah, I just was curious too, obviously however we're making the transaction, but I'm wondering if we're talking about funding things, could the district fund the athletic programs more so that this type of transaction might not have to happen in this way? And I know we're taking a look at, different purchasing processes and different things from the audit, but it's a good example. It's a wonderful thing that that LEFS has been able to do this for us and with us. I'm just wondering, is there another way for the district to support the athletics, and if we did something different, what would it be?
Any other board comment on the side? Questions? All right. Up next, board self-evaluation. This was something Ms. Mufeld had asked to put on the agenda, so I'll turn it over to her to kick us off.
Thank you, Mr. Dolman. I did request this item, and you know that I have in multiple meetings, the board. So I believe very strongly in board development and professional learning for us too. And that's something I don't think we've been able to invest in for ourselves over the last couple of cycles. And I'm not sure when the last board evaluation we had. I don't believe we had one last year. Our policy is a bit loose on this, I guess. And I am willing to help put some structure around it. Mr. Doman and Ms. Fraley have asked if I would take a look at it. But I wanted to get your opinion on how to go about this before I put too much energy into it. Over time, some things have been more beneficial than others for us to understand how we're doing as a board. We have, multiple survey instruments. We've done book studies. There are models out there that are very detailed, where some boards are evaluating themselves against their metrics on a quarterly basis, even, their student outcome metrics actually on a quarterly basis, and against their, strategic plans and how they're impacting in the classroom. I'm just looking for kind of a round table of what would be meaningful to you so that I can bring back some ideas for us. Typically, the time frame would be in the summer. We could, host it in a number of different ways. And again, the idea would be to lead into it as we're working in partnership with the superintendent. So the superintendent, in fact, would be an evaluator of the board. And we might choose to also include other stakeholders in evaluation of the board in a formal, more formal process. I mean, we anecdotally and through public comment and correspondence that we receive and certainly have, we receive feedback. I'm just wondering how we can collectively move forward in this process, be more, make it more valuable and meaningful to us to action on it. And of course, our student school board reps would be involved as well. I didn't mean to do that. So I'll just open up the floor to a roundtable. I mean, one thing I thought about, it's the book that Dr. Means shared with us when he first, not too long after he first arrived. And I'm wondering if this also, might be kind of a book study option for us if we wanted to go in that direction. So if I could just get your feedback, and then I'd like to come back to you in 2 or so months when I have a little chance to work on it and put some things together.
Mrs. Muhlfeld, I believe you're a good selection for this task because you've taken on this challenge before, and you're sure to be here in April. So we will have 1, 2, or 3 new board members beginning of the next term, a second meeting in April, is that right?
That's
okay.
right.
So there's a great deal of need for all 7 board members to get to the same reference points on knowledge and of the laws, of procedure, concepts of good boardsmanship, boardspersonship. In the past, when Dr. Ertl started, Dr. Ertl, as I'm sure you recall, Mrs. Muhlfeld, Dr. Ertl brought resources to the board for mentoring, coaching, education, however you want to say it. I'm certain Dr. Means, with his large body of experience at multiple school districts, including Wauwatosa in a much earlier time, and Mequon and other places, could bring to the board experts to update the board on legal processes and, like I said, what are the components of good board behavior, productive board behavior, and lay down a set of expectations at the beginning of the year. And after you've come to a common set of values and principles, at the beginning of the year, then figure out how you're going to review it at the end of the year. That would be what I would think to do. I would think back to my current law practice world, that in every 2-year cycle, I'm required to have a certain number of continuing legal education credits, including a certain number of credits on ethics. So you think you know it because you've done it for a while, but you get rusty. So everybody could benefit from the same education, refresher education. I'm sure there's some things, despite my long tenure, there's some things I still don't know that Dr. Means could help me with if I were here, I'm sure. So I'm sure that goes with everyone as well. So that would be how I would suggest to proceed with that.
Okay, thank you.
That's right.
So I'm really excited that you brought this up, and I definitely have some thoughts about resources that we might use, one of which I forwarded to you coming from the Council for Great City Schools. That's a student outcomes focused governance evaluation. The idea being here that a board is assessing itself against the goals that are connected directly to student achievement. It's a rubric, and I think there's just things we can possibly pull from that. But to Mr. Meyer's point, I think the timing of this is good, that we see who's in the seats come April 25th, and that we then figure out what it is that we want to be actually assessing, and then moving towards a place where we're gathering all the thoughts of the board and creating something that can then be used as a tool by the board president and Dr. Means to sort of keep us grounded quarterly biannually, whatever it is, with our new strategic plan. So again, I think the timing, I don't think we can really create a board evaluation tool until we have a new strategic plan, so that we're sure, again, that everything is in alignment. We have all these audits that are, have recommendations. We have all these great new staff. How do we make sure that we're lining up everything? But I one would definitely have us take a look at that particular model, because it really is steeped in this idea of, is the board actually spending their time and their money in alignment with what we're saying has to happen in order for student outcomes to change. So that's my 2 cents.
Just see if anyone's initial comment.
I would just add, I think it's really important that it be directly, specifically addressed, that we are supposed to be a policy board. And that means one employee answers to us on a policy basis, and that's the superintendent. The board, none of the 7 board members has any executive authority, can basically speak to nothing. That the only voice of the board is the board in a notice meeting calling the roll. While at the same time, we expect board members to be out in the buildings and in the community. I'm not sure always it's self-evident how to reconcile those 2 things. So with respect to especially new board members, and with respect to veteran board members as well, because everybody can fall into some kind of habit that seemed like a good idea at the time, but it's not working out, that be directly discussed about what's an appropriate way for a board member to interact with staff, because it's not self-evident to me. It's a cultural thing that everybody has to learn and reinforce, I think.
From my perspective, I've struggled with this idea of board evaluation since I joined. And I think because I look at evaluations from, who do you answer to? That's who should give your evaluation. We all get evaluated every 3 years. That's the election process, right? If you want to be up again, you have to convince the public that you're the right person for the job. We answer to them and they let us know. So anything that we're going to do as far as an evaluation, I want to make sure that it really looks at what the board role is. I understand that we want to look at outcomes and student outcomes and all of those things, and those are obviously incredibly important, exactly what the district should do. But that, from my perspective, the board has to evaluate itself. Is it giving Dr. Means and his staff the direction and the funding and the things like that? Now, if we say, yes, we did, and we don't get the student outcomes we want, that's a superintendent evaluation discussion in my mind. But if we say as a board, hey, we didn't do a very good job at it, then that's a board evaluation. So I think really delineating between what those 2 things are is going to be incredibly important for me. So I understand truly what it is we're evaluating, because it's going to be hard for me to move off the idea that we get evaluated by the public, and that's pretty much it. They're really that's who we answer to. But I think where Mr. Meyer was going a little bit, maybe, and I'm sorry if I'm saying this wrong, I do like the idea of continued education for sure. I think we all could know more and understand more what's a legal perspective and things like that. So I would definitely like to bring that to the board, and that's certainly something Dr. Means and I have talked about. So continue to find those opportunities. So maybe there's a way for us to maybe combine those things or build off of it, around a board education, especially since we'll have 1 new board member for sure. So I think those are my thoughts for this evening.
To that end, just to build off Mr. Meyer's point, I know I've shared with Dr. Means already things that I hope that we are considering preparing to welcome possibly 1, 2, 3 new board members to this group. And I would just encourage other board members, as we think about our own collective professional development, we're also thinking about, like, I thought about all the things that I wish I would have known then that I know now to ask for, or, just something to keep in mind, because that time is short before we have, new board members possibly joining. So.
Dr. Justin.
Ms. Bufeld, thank you for taking this on, for continuing to push at this. The things that particularly resonate with me about this is having something that is that we're evaluating ourselves tied to, are we leading the district towards the outcomes that we desire? So that makes sense. I think the ongoing development, I think onboarding is essential. I think I'm still the newest board member. And I certainly would have benefited, and I think my sense is most of us would have from a more robust onboarding process. And then the idea of the book group using that text, I love the book itself. Kind of ongoing using that as a foundation for discussions of how do we be and act together? How do we thoughtfully critique and consider different guidance and directions, and all those things I think would be really beneficial. Not to come to a consistent way of us all thinking the same way, but come to a consistent way of respecting how each other thinks, relying upon each other's strengths, making sure that we're creating space for different expertise and questions to be asked, so that we're constantly challenging ourselves to think in different ways. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I find the self-evaluation is something that I hadn't really thought about. And your point makes a lot of sense to me, because when we first came on board, something that really resonated to me is the board has one employee, the superintendent. So kind of answering to the public does have a lot of sense to me. That's why I feel that.
I do think it's important that kind of everyone on the board, and then as well as welcoming new people in the election, that overall everyone's kind of on the same page, and I think that is a perfect idea, and I think it'll just, as a whole, that idea of kind of getting everyone on the same page, in any circumstance, that is always beneficial, and it helps get stuff done quicker, more efficient, and just better as a whole. I agree.
Thank you. Mr.
One more thing. There was a time when we had 3 attorneys on the board and no educators. And next term, you could have no attorneys on the board and 2 educators. And I think the cultural self-awareness will change depending upon the skill set on the board. When we had 3 attorneys on the board, there was sort of a cultural ability to understand nuanced distinctions between certain behaviors against certain laws. And we've kind of lost that as we've lost that critical mass. On the other hand, we have a great deal of educational expertise on the board that we never had before. So I think your subject matter that you emphasize, not that you leave anything out, but I think the skills that are on the board affect the depth that you have to go into for getting a baseline set of knowledge in the board members.
Yeah, I think, just building on that, I think a great place to start would be, we all need to come to an agreement of what we expect a board member to do. Can't really evaluate ourselves if we don't have a job description, or we don't have coach people every day to give evaluation.
Spoken like a real HR guy.
It goes back to what was your expectations, right? If we don't agree on what our expectations are, we can't do an evaluation. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you. Just to build on what Mr. Meyer is saying, I think that's a brilliant statement, is to identify what the blind spot is on the board and then fill it with a citizen committee or a committee of hybrid staff, citizens, and to evaluate maybe on an ad hoc basis each year, depending on what talent is on the school board, what ad hoc committees there should be. Because there are a lot of times where I think we both have said, well, that's not our strong suit. We'll lean on other people who have that expertise. But if nobody has that expertise, then that's obviously a problem. So you should be mindful of that.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe. Ms. Bufeld, is that helpful? You're a diligent note taker, so I know you. jotting those things down.
Yes, it's very helpful. I'm taking notes and I'll reshuffle them and give them back to you at our next juncture. Mr. Phillips,
Yeah, I agree. Sounds like a plan.
nothing to add?
No,
Nothing
not at all.
specific to add?
No.
Okay.
And let's stay in touch about scheduling, agending, things like that. Clearly, there's an idea to move it forward. So we'll make sure that happens.
Dr. Means?
I will serve you and the board as you see fit. It's very exciting just to have the conversation.
I know you gave us the governance core book and I didn't say who it's, Davis Campbell and Michael Fulin. And I haven't read the entire book, okay, but I have started it and it's very good. So, what works best, and a lot of it could just be conversational too, where you learn from each other and you learn, so we have policy around behavior, but in specific examples, how did we measure up? And the community gives us some feedback. We ourselves obtain some feedback, but do we really have a plan to act on it? We've also heard that comment from the community. So I think connecting all those dots is important, and timing any kind of new tool with a new board going into next year, that makes sense. So I'll work with Mr. Doman and Dr. Means to, put something on the agenda in a little bit, a couple months, and we'll, I think we'll have some board training before that.
Yes.
Okay, and we have a lot of comments were around board member orientation. Do we have something formal in place? That was a question that has come up over time. Ms. Fraley brought it up.
I sent all my ideas of things that I thought we should be ready to share, things that we should consider creating, thinking about resources from WSD. I think it's just really overwhelming in the beginning. Like, you're so invested in, why you ran, right? But I feel like there's a steep learning curve with the board. I feel like even in year 5, I'm still looking to Mr. Meyer to say, is that how we did that motion?
Yeah,
or looking to you to say, have we done that before? So I want to make sure that we're setting up whomever, comes onto the board to be successful.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. No, I don't think there was formal training.
Yeah.
There wasn't when I came on.
It definitely was. I got a big notebook.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely an area for improvement to make evaluation
Okay,
for us.
that's an action item too. Okay, thank you.
If I may, I want to endorse something you said, Mr. Doman. The idea that we are accountable to the voters. When I had a long-standing relationship, with talking with Lois Weber back in the day, and there was a frustration I had about someone on the board, and she looked at me directly and said, the voters elected this person. You're going to have to work with them. So that's kind of what you're saying. It's like the evaluation can only go to certain places, and the rest is up to the voters. Yeah,
absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Appreciate the conversation. I think Ms. Beafield got what you're looking for at least, and we'll stay in contact and move this forward. Last item for this evening, final public comment on items that are either on the agenda or items that are not on the agenda. We'll start with folks in the room and then move online. So if you're online, please raise your hand. Please come forward, state your name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, Deb Falk-Palak. I wanted to make comment about public comment again. I made that at the February 14th meeting, and that was the evening that the curriculum audit was presented. And again, it was shocking to people who had parents and some of the staff who had wanted to speak that abruptly without warning. the board president eliminated public comment. And I know Mr. Meyer had spoken up and asked about that. And I honestly was really disappointed that he was the only board member to speak up in support of open government and an abrupt change in how process and procedures were done. And maybe this speaks to what Mrs. Muehlfeld is talking about board education and how to proceed. But as we understand the special education audit will be presented, it would be horrible to see this happen again. That whether it's the board president or someone else would not allow public comment for this audit as well. So I am asking that other board members stand up for the nearly 1,000 students with disabilities in our district and allow us to speak when this audit is presented.
I don't see anyone else in the room. Jamie, do we have anyone online? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm
we've
sorry.
got it.
Sorry.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. My mistake. Sorry. Please come forward. Sorry, Jamie. No, please come up.
2520 North 93rd Street. Good evening. On March 2nd, I attended the school board candidate forum and I applaud all 6 candidates for considering the task and putting in their time and effort. The new guide for candidates published by the Wisconsin Association of School Boards lists the qualities a school board member should have. For example, an open mind, readiness to learn, the ability to act with other board members to advance the best interest of the school district, and freedom of conflict with any other interest. Current school board members, as well as candidates, have talked about the nonpartisan nature of the board acting as one body, and the desire to represent all of Wauwatosa. I agree fully with all these sentiments. I firmly believe an excellent public education is the first and most important step towards an equal and equitable society. And I would love for the school board to uphold those ideals, and especially in these divisive times, to remain unbiased. So I find it most unfortunate when the school board president not only endorses 3 candidates in a Facebook forum, but also disparages 3 other candidates because of their supposedly conservative supporters. I mean, I asked my husband, is conservative a compliment? He said no. Is the message that these supposedly conservative families are not to be welcomed here or represented here? And where does President Doman get his information on the candidates and especially those supporters? The parents I have heard speak here over the last 2 years have only shown concern for their children's education and well-being. This isn't displaying open-mindedness or any of the other characteristics desired in a school board member. The DPI report card for the Wauwatosa School District is nothing to write home about. And many of you have been on the board or even been president during the slide. Perhaps some new ideas put us back on track. So why not welcome them? The entire board should discourage bias and create a more welcoming environment. Having listened to the March 2nd presentation, I can't see that those 3 candidates needed any endorsement. They did pretty well on their own, nor that the other 3 deserve to be labeled or their supporters deserve to be labeled. If you place politics over the success of the Wauwatosa School District, you all are failing our students. Not just mine, who has the advantage of me being at home, inquiring in homework, trying to make sure the ship stays afloat, but especially those students in our community who do not have those opportunities and who are relying on an excellent public education for a brighter future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from those in the room? I think I'm really seeing that now, Jamie. Is there anyone online?
Yeah, we have a few hands raised. BJ Ermans, you have the microphone. Please state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is BJ Ermans. I live at 2749 North 75th Street. And I want to make the comment that I am very surprised that there's no orientation for new board members. And I was also surprised at the extended discussion on a board evaluation, if it is something that has to be done every 3 years. I actually have more questions than comments, but I have already learned that questions are not permitted in the comments, and I will go to the website and enter those questions in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is Mary Jo Randall. You have the microphone. Please state your name and address.
Excuse me, Mary Jo Randall, 727 North 59th Street. Mr. Doman, to your inappropriate comments that I was giving incorrect data, I will get that data to you. But in the meantime, you can go to the DPI website and you can download the public staff reports and the administrative staff reports. You can sort those Excel spreadsheets and see for yourself. And I hope that you were not suggesting that the teachers are not underpaid based on other districts. We need to get the focus back on the teachers. There was a decision made tonight and there were some pretty difficult to hear comments by the staff. So again, your comment to me was inappropriate and I will get you the data, but feel free to check it out yourself in the meantime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Julie Alexander. You have the microphone. Please state your name and address.
Julie Alexander, 7224 West State Street, Unit 1A in Waukesha. I'm just making a final comment that I'm really hoping that the school board takes up the special audit results and really has some good discussions on how we can serve our nearly 1,000 individuals with disabilities in the school district. Basically, and I've been looking at everything, and it also shows that teachers who teach special ed, are the ones that you're even seeking are getting like lower wages than some of the other teachers. So it's a rather interesting concept about that. And I do believe that, all boards should have some type of self-evaluation of some sort, just to keep everything fresh and really look at goal orientation for what they should be doing in a year, almost like a work plan that should be public. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no more hands raised.
Good. Just in 15 years ago and 16 years ago and longer when Dr. Means was working here, we had a communications director, Mary Pat File, who before every election, she ran something that was called School Board Academy. And anyone who even wasn't a candidate yet could come, and there was 2 big binders of material and question and answer. And that activity was lost as we went through budget cuts. So just to say we used to do things but maybe to be looked at in the self-assessment, Mrs. Mufeld, as far as what the board could be doing to assist future boards, for example. So thank you.
All right, that closes our items for this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Meyer. Ms. Newman, please call the roll.
Ms. Fraley?
Yes.
Dr. Joseph Banger?
Yes.
Mr. Meyer?
Yes.
Ms. Mufeld?
Yes.
Mr. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rowland?
Yes.
Mr. Doman?
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.